dinner, and it seemed to be pretty successful. And everything was done in like 2 hours. So if you come, if you come next year, you know you're going to be able to get in and out, be able to see everything, and it would be a tremendous time. We had our Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, who was our keynote speaker. Byron Brown introduced her. We had Crystal Peoples was there. We had a pretty good representation of a cross section of our society, our good friends at United Way. And across the spectrum we had for the dinner. So I want to welcome all the attenders to our insight, introspection, and interpretation of facts, events, and trends affecting you right here and right now in Buffalo and the Western New York community, and in fact, connect you to communities all across the country. Each week we focus on things we think will be of interest to you, which will serve to motivate you and serve to connect you to the broader issues that affect our communities here in Western New York. Now, today's program, of course, is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. I hope that you will. Our number here again is 837-1112. That's 837-1112. I'm here with Emmanuel Radford, who does the live streaming of the program. He's sort of like my live streaming producer of the program. He also chimes in with some of his thoughts about some of the things that we are discussing on the air. If you want to participate in the program and you have a computer handy or you have a handheld device, you can type in Facebook and then type in Living Now. The program will come up. You'll actually be able to see us talking, although I have a face for radio. You see us talking. And any questions or observations or concerns that you have, you can type them in, and we will do everything we can to respond to them on the air as time permits. I want to use this program to connect some dots. Before I say that, let me lay something out for you. The Campaign for Fiscal Equity sued the state, the New York State or the New York City School District, and in consequence of that, also sued New York State, stating that the district failed to provide an opportunity for a sound basic education for the children in the New York City Public School District. In 1995, the Court of Appeals issued a landmark decision holding that the education article of the state constitution requires the state to offer all children the opportunity for a sound basic education. It further held that the state's failure to fulfill this constitutional mandate would give rise to a judicially recognizable cause of action. In other words, you could be sued for not doing what the court had ruled that you were responsible to do. At trial, the plaintiffs proved and the trial court found that the state was failing to provide New York City school children with the opportunity to receive a sound basic education. I don't know why Buffalo didn't join that class action immediately. Waited until they thought it was going to work in New York City's favor, and then we joined the lawsuit. We should have jumped on that right away. The appellate decision rested upon the conclusion that the constitutionally mandated opportunity to receive a sound basic education. So this is when the city of New York and the state appealed the initial decision in 1995, and when they went to the appellate court said that education, that opportunity to receive a sound basic education should consist of little more than the opportunity to receive an 8th or 9th grade education. In other words, if your public school district would do enough to give you a shot at getting into the 8th or the 9th grade, you've fulfilled your mandate, as a state. That's actually what the appellate court in New York State ruled. Fortunately, we have higher courts than the appellate court. So I don't know if you know the hierarchy here, but the State Court of Appeals actually is above the appellate court, right? So the Campaign for Fiscal Equity appealed to the State Court of Appeals, and they took the position that a sound education, that the state is I'm sorry. Let me finish up first what the appellate court said. This is how they justified the decision. Their ruling that New York City was only responsible for giving kids a route to get to the 8th or ninth grade. This is what they said. You gotta hear this. The state is not legally responsible for the failure of a child not to succeed in getting through secondary education for such failure, because the appropriate societal cure lies in eliminating the socioeconomic conditions facing certain students. So essentially, the state argued that the disparities in the educational outcomes of identifiable groupings of students in New York State's public schools, particularly the schools in New York City, that this was the result of factors external to the public schools themselves and outside of their control. It's not our fault that you have single parent families. It's not our fault that you have households that are poor. It's not our fault that you don't have anybody in the household that went to college. It's not our fault that you have high unemployment. So that's why we're not succeeding with the students, because of all of these external factors and whatnot. That's what the state appellate court ruled, right? Fortunately, the Court of Appeals in 2003 actually reversed the appellate court's decision and directed the state to remedy the inadequate education in New York City. However, to date, that was in 2003 when the Court of Appeals ruled against the appellate court, right? Yet to this day, this article was written, I believe, in 2017. To date, this decision has not been implemented, nor have the public schools outside of New York City received any significant benefit from this ruling. So I want to combine this reality of what happened with the Campaign for Fiscal Equity's decision binding New York State as a state to adequately fund education at the public school education across the state. The courts ruled that New York State had been grossly underfunding public school education across the state. So I want to combine the fact that that decision was never implemented. It was ruled. I don't know why we have courts. Why have a court if the court can rule something and then what the court rules doesn't get done, and nobody goes to jail, nobody gets accused of contempt of the court. I mean, isn't that contempt of the court? The court rules something, you don't do it, that's contempt of court. That used to be. They probably got a new constitution since the new administration came in. They probably got a new constitution going on, right? So I want to combine the fact that the ruling in favor of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity that New York State was required to put, and I think the dollar value was something in the area of $4.5 billion more they were supposed to put into public school education across the state. I want to combine that issue with the fact that the desegregation initiative that was begun in this country in the since Brown versus the Board of Education ruled against the idea of separate but equal schools. And we had talked before about the fact that in 1954, there were 0 black students who were attending a school in the United States where the majority, black students who were attending a school where there was a majority of white students. All of the black students were attending schools with other black students. If they were attending a school at all, it was a school with a majority of black students. That was in 1954. That's what prompted this decision in the first place. So the Brown versus Board of Education said you can't have separate schools, because separate by definition means unequal, not equal, right? Now, I'm not going to get into the argument about whether or not it would be the best thing for you to have integrated schools as opposed to quality all black schools. I'm not going to argue that. My position is we have to get everybody to the dance. The dance isn't getting to school. The dance is getting to the economy. You have to get from being born to getting into the economy where you have a sound reliable way of making enough money that you can pay for your home, you can pay for your kids, you can pay for your dog, you can pay for your fence, you can pay for your lights, you can pay for your gas. If you're not getting that done, what in the world are we doing? I mean, this is not an exercise in fanciful thinking and whatnot. I don't need fanciful thinking. I don't need pretty flowers around me. I need for my kids to be able to eat on their own. I don't need for my kids to grow up and then spend the rest of their lives living on my couch. I need for my kids to grow up and become self-sufficient, economically able to stand for themselves and socially able to function as citizens in the society. That's the dance. Now, if we're not talking about how we shepherd kids from being born to getting to the dance, we're not talking about anything. Let's just be honest about this, right? Stop talking around the circles. You know, it's nice, you know, if you get to be around some orange people and some green people and some of this people and some of that people. That's all nice. I get that, right? But that's not the dance. The dance is I got to get you to the point that when I let go of you, you got certification that shows that you can paint, you can plumb, you can engineer, you can draw, you can mill, you can cut wood, you can manipulate computer technology, you can make a stand, right? If you can't make a stand, I fail. It's just that simple. I fail, right? So we have to get this done. We have somebody hanging on here? All right. So listen, let me grab somebody on that point before I get further into my subject. We'll get back into it. Let me grab this call real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Are you there?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, hello. How you doing? I can hear you.
I can't hear you, Nathan, so I'll just make the point.
Can you hear me now? I can.
We have a lot of...
Bob, turn your radio down. That's why you can't hear.
No, I had it down. You had said hello. I shut it off, and then I couldn't hear you. I can hear you now.
All right, great. Okay.
Okay. We have a lottery that was started to fund the school system. Where's all that money going?
I don't know. All I know is that there has been a court ruling that says that New York State is underfunding education. They put the lottery program in and the additional sales tax stuff in, supposedly to create the money to fund education. And we find that education is still being underfunded, and that money is going into the general fund, taking care of other responsibilities other than public school education.
You mean like those commercials that say come to New York and come and visit all of the wonderful places that we have, but yet we don't seem to have the wonderful places that we really need? I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. I mean, this is why I'm paying extra money in my gas and my electric bill. I mean, I need a hot water tank, Nathan. I priced them.
That's why you gotta vote. You gotta vote for people that are gonna actually support what you want done. We can't keep voting for people just in mindless blocks. We have to hold people accountable. At the end of the day, it doesn't help us to have party friends, and the party friends that we have are still doing things that are opposite of what it is that we say we want as a community of people. We've got to vote for people that will actually do the things that we're talking about.
Well, the problem with that, Nathan, is that when I find people I like, the party seems to oust them. I mean, just ask Betty Jean Grant what she had to put up with, because I've heard her more than one time tell her, or what she had said on this station was that she was told to keep her mouth quiet, okay? And that's because they don't want to upset the apple cart, because they're still biting at the apple, my friend.
But I really want us to. I really want us to get off of the they conversation, because every time we say they, we're externalizing who has to do something different, as if the person who has to do something different is not us. We're the ones who have to do something different. Now, just because you get your head around the right way to go, it doesn't mean that everybody else is going to get it right away. So you're going to have to persist over a period of time to get people to move in the right direction. But that's what it really has to boil down to. People have to, like-minded people have to get together. They've got to campaign. They've got to educate. They've got to do everything in their power to get people to move in a direction that's going to produce the outcomes for our public that we say we want to see occur. So, Bob, I appreciate it. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say this, Nathan. I've been trying for a very long time to do this through normal channels, and I haven't been able to. I've tried to outlaw energy-efficient light bulbs that have mercury. I've even taken a pack of mercury to Senator Sikowski's office and left him on his desk while he was there and said these things are dangerous, and it never happened. I had politicians that promised me, such as Senator Sikowski, who I did vote for. He was a Democrat, say if I won my next election, I will chair the Senate Finance Committee and will be in a position to help Buffalo greatly. And he gets elected, and what does he do? He chairs a lesser committee and takes a $25,000 stipend. And I just want to remind you, I mean, I watched Mark Poloncarz join the Paris Accords to save the children from global warming. And
Okay.
what did he end up with?
I don't want to get too far away from my subject.
I understand that, but there's a point where I'm trying to make, because I've had these conversations with you before, and people have denied these things to you, in which we've had open conversation, but yet with your own eyes you have watched this, because it's not done by a long shot. And I keep holding something back, but at some point it's going to manifest and show itself, and that's why I just mentioned Mark Poloncarz joined the Paris Accords, because we're the problem. It's we, humanity, we're creating global warming, which is why you see such an unprecedented abortion rate. And what did you see? 4 northeasterns, a cyclone bomb, an ice storm, actually 2 of them in April, the warmest May. I mean...
All right, I got you, Bob. I got your point.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I talked to you later. Remember, Joshua was called upon in your presence, and you saw the tornadoes and the ice storms. So I'll just let it go at that.
Okay.
God bless you, Nathan.
All right,
Have
take
a very
care, Bob.
blessed week.
All right, do the same. And so, how are we doing on time? We should take our first break. Okay, so that's why I don't like to get too far away, because then we take our break and we lose our focus. But when we get back, I want to talk about how we combine the reality of the failure to sustain the momentum for desegregation and the failure to sustain the momentum for properly financing our public schools in New York State. So if you all stick with us, we will sit us out of the break here at Living Right Now.
Do you want to increase your home's value? Do you want to lower your energy bills? Are you in need of affordable financing for your next home improvement project? The CAO Home Improvement Resource Program can help. Just come to their monthly orientation session every second Wednesday of the month at 564 Dodge Street.
You got to call on line 1.
HIRP staff will help identify the resources you need to get financed, and they'll even help you with completing your application. You won't know what you qualify for until you call them today at 8.
That's just the reality.
6543. That's 881-6543. Learn about all the home improvement programs you may be eligible for, and ask about the affordable financing program that can help turn your house into your dream home. Call 881-6543 for more info. It's the Home Improvement Resource Program, restoring value to neighborhoods across Erie County, one house at a time. Brought to you by the Community Action Organization of Erie County.
Hey, this is your boy Tim Bowman. When I'm in the Bahamas, I'm in the Keys, or overseas, I listen to Power965Radio.com.
All right. Welcome back to Living Now here at WFO Power 96.5 FM on your dial. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Emmanuel Radford, who's doing the live streaming of the program. And so I just wanted to knit this together again, the idea of the fact that desegregation in this country, the momentum for desegregation has actually completely died down. And we actually are going in reverse. We're having reverse desegregation. We're resegregating, but now we're resegregating based on class, as opposed to segregating based on race. I think we have a caller hanging on. Let me grab that call real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Hare.
Hi, Mother Doyle.
I'm doing pretty good. This is my final week of my last official course.
Uh-oh.
And I'll be, well, I won't be really done, but I'll be finished with the classes.
So now you got to do your dissertation, right?
I got to do that. And I got a letter of congratulations for reaching this point. And I'll be actually my last day is actually Friday, but I'm going to try to finish up by Wednesday. And so what I have to do this summer, Mr. Hare, I'll be working with a mentor to finish. I have to finish up 3 milestones, and I'm hoping to finish it all up by late fall.
Excellent.
So say a prayer for me. I'm going into the final leg of this journey.
There you go. You can see the finish
I
line
hope,
now.
with God's help, that I'm able to do it. But when you were talking about preparing young people to be independent and to leave your home and all that, I thought about the guy, you probably read about him in the paper, who was 30 years old, and his parents took him to court because he wouldn't leave. Did you read about that this year?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
They took him to court, and he got angry with the parents because he felt he should stay in their house forever.
Yep.
But they finally put him out, so that kind of brought back that little humor there. But it was funny. But what I was actually calling for is I wanted to announce my latest essay contest. It's for adults only, and the topic is racism. And there are 5 questions that anybody who enters the contest have to answer. But the first question, I don't want to take up a lot of time giving you all 5, but the first question is, how do you define racism? And when I ask that question, I'm asking people, don't go look it up in the dictionary. I want their own words. How do they define racism? And then it goes from there. And then the last question I'll say is, I like to be creative. If you had a magic wand and you could spread the wand over places in the city or in the nation, what 3 places would you choose as being the most racist? That you could use that wand to make it disappear. So anyway, the deadline is June 30th, and if people come out to Juneteenth, I'll be out there. I'll have a table. I'll have flyers and all the rules and everything for the contest, and I hope I get a lot of people entering the contest.
I hope so,
but,
too.
I thank you for your information. And, you know, I think I heard you comment on this, that sometimes we have to really kind of depend on ourselves. I believe that. My whole life is doing things and not depending on the political establishment to say, you need to do this or do that. But if there's something that I can do in my own little sphere of the world, that's what I try to do. So I just kind of wanted to pass that on. So anyway, I hope to see you if you come out to Juneteenth, Mr. Hare. I hope you stop by my table.
I'm going to try to get to some of the events during the course of the run-up to Juneteenth, and I'll definitely see you on this weekend.
Okay.
All
and
right.
you have a good day.
Thanks. Do the same.
All right.
Appreciate you, Mother Doyle. And so, you know, the reason why I want to focus on this is the Brown versus Board of Education is talked about in this country as if it was a seminal event. By seminal, I mean it sort of changed the conversation from one kind of conversation to something different. So instead of talking prior to that time about every school district is on its own, states' rights, local school districts decide what they do within their districts. If they choose to be, you know, or segregated, you know, that's the way that they want to do it, you know, that the federal government doesn't have a role, you know, in that conversation and so on, that states can allocate their dollars any way that they want to allocate their dollars. They don't want to finance, you know, the opportunity for sound education for the children, then they don't have to, right? In fact, there is no actual overriding constitutional provision that says, I mean, the Department of Education didn't exist in the Constitution. That's a fairly recent innovation, right? I forgot exactly when the Department of Education was started in the Carter administration. So it's not that this is a macro constitutional issue, but it's a constitutional issue from the perspective of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment not only says that you cannot deny citizenship to somebody, it also says that you cannot deny the privileges of citizenship to someone who is a citizen. Wow, that's new logic, right? If you're a citizen, people can't deny you the ability to act like a citizen just because they don't like you. But in this country, they did. In this country, they passed the 14th Amendment in 1866. And from 1866 until 1954, they said, even though you're a citizen, we're not going to allow you to operate as a citizen. You can only operate in the 45% of citizenship we're willing to let you operate in. Like you got to pay taxes. Right? You got to clean up the mess in front of your house. You got to do that part of citizenship. But, we get to make you live wherever we say you can live, and you don't get a loan unless we want you to get a loan. It's that kind of a thing. So that's what, just so people understand, that's what Brown versus the Board of Education is really founded on. It's founded on the premise that once you said that everybody who was born in the United States is a citizen of the United States, period. Once you said that, that's not black people didn't make that up. You made that up. Caucasian people made that up. The people that were in power made that up. They decided that. Once that decision was made, then everything that a citizen was empowered by law to be able to do or empowered by law to be able to receive, all African people in this country became empowered by law to do those things and were empowered by law to receive those things. So if you're providing public school education for the public, you have to provide the same public school education for black people that you provide for Caucasian people. Now, you and I have talked on this program how when I was a mid-teenager, talking with Bill Gator and folks, in that genre of leadership, Buffalo, the issue at that time was that kids who were going to schools that were 90, 95, 100% black children were getting radically fewer dollars allocated to their education than students who were going to schools that were 90, 95, 100% Caucasian kids, right? That should not be possible, right? If we're all paying taxes and we're all part of the state public school system, every single one of us should be getting, the same quality of education. Doesn't mean that every single one of us is going to have the same outcomes, right? I mean, you don't have to get an A just because, you're a student in the system. You got an A, therefore I got to get an A because I'm a student in the system too. You still have to perform to get the A. But the opportunity for you to learn has to be the same no matter what school you go to, what city you're in, what borough you're in, whether you're rural or suburban or dense city and so on. The opportunity to receive a sound education has to be the same, right? So we talked about this on the air, and I'm basing a lot of this part of my discussion on an article written by Kelly Baer that was entitled "How We Ended Up Here: How America's Public School Crisis Started and What Chance," and Chance is referring to a rap star named Chance, "what Chance and you are doing to help." This was written in complex.com online article in March of last year. And Chance is a rap star. He put up $1 million. So just before you start hating on rap people and whatnot, Chance put up $1 million of his money, not somebody else's money. He put up $1 million of his money to jumpstart reinvestment in Chicago's public schools. He asked the overriding question that needs to be answered across the United States. His question was, how did we get here? A 21st century America, not just Chicago, where is rife with apartheid schools. This is what Chant referred to them as. Schools that serve almost exclusively black and brown students, schools that are chronically underfunded, schools that struggle to fulfill every student's right to the quality education that can give them a fair shot at success, schools or in an America more interested in funding the school-to-prison pipeline than public schools themselves, and in an America where we spend less than $10,000 a year on average to educate a child in New York State, but anywhere from $35,000 to $64,000 to incarcerate that same child who we failed to educate when that child was in elementary and secondary school. Do we have somebody? Okay. And Chant, or not Chance, Sarah Kamascoli, who is the founder and director of Integrate New York City for Me, her quote was, "The water we swim in is racism and segregation." essentially what is being recognized by some and has always been recognized by others is that the momentum towards school desegregation is completely stopped. The so-called hardworking, working class white has become an identified, aggrieved grouping of people who supposedly have had their interests ignored and are finally able to push back against encroachment on their rights, privileges, and liberties. That's what's being pushed right now. As we have reported on previously, in 1976, no African American or black student sat in public school in a public school class in Buffalo, where the majority of the students were white. By 1986, 43% of the black students sat in the classroom where the majority of students in that school were white. But today, only 23% of black students sit in the class where the majority of people in that class are white. So we've become more desegregated over the past 20 years rather than less desegregated in the midst of the so-called desegregation movement that began in the mid-late 60s. It is now accepted legitimate policy for whites to assert meritocracy as a justification for continued discrimination in access to the Buffalo District's criteria or exam schools, and to accuse critics of playing the race card rather than accepting the responsibility of the parents to produce high educational outcomes for their children. Recent data shows a trend towards even deeper segregation in this country. A nationwide study released in April of 2016 by the Government Accountability Office, an independent nonpartisan agency that works for Congress, found that between the academic years of the 2000-2001 school year and the 2013-2014 school year, despite the fact that more than 50% of all public school children in the United States are non-white, the percentage of isolated schools where 75% or more of the students are of the same race or class grew from 9% in 2001 to 16% in 2014. So we are actually going in reverse. Instead of moving to a more desegregated society where everybody is in a community of education where people are learning from each other, we're becoming more and more isolated, from each other due to the policies that have been undertaken by the people that have been in power in this country. Most of the schools where students are segregated by race, class, or language, or all three, are in cities like Chicago. Kids of color represent a majority of the student body in 83 of the 100 largest cities in America, and that in 58 of those cities, at least 3/4 of non-white students attend majority low-income schools. We've talked a lot about the fact that schools that are dominated by low-income household children tend to take on the characteristics of those low-income household children, as opposed to taking on the characteristics of middle-class children. The consequence is that you end up with schools that are dominated by trauma, by people who are affected by trauma with PTSD, post, I don't know what the right word is, post-traumatic stress disorder. But I think there was another way that people were characterizing that PTSD situation. But the reality is that schools wind up taking on the characteristics of the traumatized rather than taking on the characteristics of the people who are not traumatized. I think we have a caller hanging on. Let me grab that call real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
Good. For a moment there, I have a question there. You said down in New York City,
right?
They can't force the instructors to graduate so many students from their school district, but it's strange. I came from a farm district up here in Niagara County, little small place called Ransomville, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And in the mid-'70s, our teacher told us, I can't remember, I was 6th or 7th grade, she said, if so many of your students their class don't graduate, her job is finished. And we had that blizzard back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But here, some reason in Buffalo, we can't force them to do anything.
Yeah, I don't think I said anything to the effect that you were pushed by a local school district to graduate X number of students. That's not what we were talking about. But the basic thesis of what I think you were saying is that we have students who are getting pushed all the way through graduation who don't have the skills of a high school graduate. There was an article, I believe it was in Saturday or Sunday's paper, that talked about this, that we have students who are, and I actually provided research for this back in 1990. We had students that were graduating from high school in 1990 in the Buffalo Public School District who couldn't read at the ninth grade level, but they had a 12th grade diploma. And that reality continues to exist within the school district. And it doesn't help us. I realize everybody wants to have this, feel-good thing that everybody got, they all graduated. But it's not enough to graduate. You have to graduate with high school graduate skills. A high school graduate is somebody who has 12th grade reading skills, 12th grade English skills, 12th grade math skills, 12th grade science skills, 12th grade study habits, 12th grade capacity to be able to sacrifice today to achieve something tomorrow. That's what being a successful graduate of your school system is. And if we're not getting that done, we're just wasting in Buffalo $23,000 to $25,000 per child per year, year in and year out, and getting nothing to show for it. We just can't allow that to continue to occur. Did that make sense?
Yeah, one more thing. Is there any way that the local colleges can sue the school system? Because I hear complaints about our community colleges and colleges down there in Erie County that they got to do the work that the grade schools haven't done.
Yeah, but keep in mind, they may be doing the work that the secondary schools should have done, but they're getting paid to do that work. These people that are teaching developmental studies classes or whatever they call them, to sort of remedial classes to get you caught up so that you can do college level work, they're charging tuition rates as if you were taking credit bearing courses. You're charging tuition equivalent rates for those students who are taking those courses. So I don't have any sympathy for the college folks that are teaching developmental studies, because if they were not teaching at the college level, teaching those developmental studies courses, they'd be teaching at the high school level, teaching the people that work in the first place. So that's not my issue. My issue is that we keep allowing ourselves to be tricked into pursuing goals that are not really the fundamental goals that we need to achieve as a community of people. Having as our goal desegregated classrooms just by itself means that if classrooms used to be 100% white or 100% black, and now they're 90% white or 90% black, all of those schools are desegregated. What did that do for the education of the children? The reality is, if it does not improve the education of the children, it doesn't help us at all, right? The other side of it is, if you've got schools that are radically underfunded, you got some schools that are in districts where the taxpayers can put up a lot of money per person in that district to finance education for their children. Other districts like Buffalo, you just don't have, I mean, the people that used to make up Buffalo when it was such a strong city, they moved outside of Buffalo, but they moved into the balance of Erie County. There was a time where like 600,000 people out of the 950 or so thousand people in Erie County, that those people lived physically in the city of Buffalo. They didn't leave the area. They just moved out of the city. 300,000 of them moved out of the city, and they now live in the balance of the county. So Buffalo still has to provide the same police, the same fire, the same sewer, same water lines, same police structure, fire structure, and so on. They still have to provide all of that at the same scale, but they have to do it with essentially 50% of the people that used to be the taxpayers. So that's why Buffalo has been in such a difficult circumstance. My position is that if the successful education of the children is the goal of New York State, then New York State has to finance that, change the way that you collect public money for the purpose of financing education. Instead of basing this on property taxes, base it on either a income tax or a sales tax or some other regularly recurring stream of income, so that you can ensure that every single school in New York State is getting a high quality of education. Simultaneously, we have to rumble with the parents. That's why we have, family court. If parents aren't taking care of their kids, take the kids. Put the kids in somebody else's stewardship. Don't leave it up to people that don't want to do it. This argument that keeps being made that the parents ought to do blah blah blah. The truth is, the parents that can do are doing, and the parents who are not doing either can't do it or they won't do it. You can't leave the kids' futures up to the roll of the dice. You know what I mean? You can't pick who your parents are going to be. You can pick what kind of future you can have for you as a child. You can fight for your future, but you can't fight for different parents. The parents you got are the parents that you got. So if they can help you, God bless us, right? They help you. But if they can't help you, the child still has to succeed educationally, or we are creating a liability on our society. That's the purpose. So that's my thought. I got to take my last break here, my brother. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right.
All right, take care. So listen, hopefully we're making some kind of sense. We'll get back into our subject in a moment. So if you all stick with us, we will sit inside of the break here at Living right now.
Do you want to increase your home's value? Do you want to lower your energy bills? Are you in need of affordable financing for your next home improvement project? The CAO Home Improvement Resource Program can help. Just come to their monthly HIRP orientation session every second Wednesday of the month at 564 Dodge Street, Building 400. HIRP staff will help identify the resources you need to get financed, and they'll even help you with completing your application. You won't know what you qualify for until you call them today at 881-6543. That's 881-6543. Learn about all the home improvement programs you may be eligible for and ask about the affordable financing program that can help turn your house into your dream home. Call 881-6543 for more info. It's the Home Improvement Resource Program, restoring value to neighborhoods across Erie County, one house at a time. Brought to you by the Community Action Organization of Erie County.
All right, welcome back to Living Now here at WFO Power 96.5 FM on your dial. This is L. Nathan here, your host, here with Emmanuel Radford, who's doing the live streaming of the program. We had a question that came in, and I think it's a very prescient question. It really gets to the heart of the matter. He basically it indicates that we're talking about the issue of not being prepared. He talks about the fact that virtually all of the initiatives that we are undertaking in our society to help those children who are underprepared academically all rest on the preparation of the parents or the student, her or himself, being an advanced student academically. What does that do for the children who are not academically advanced? What does it do for the children in households where the parents are not successful in their own lives? They don't have any college, education. They don't have an environment of people in their family circle that have, high levels of academic development. So there are no role models, for the children to follow and so on. Who helps the children who are either underprepared academically themselves or who are in households where the people that lead their households are underprepared to be able to support their children's education? Who helps them? And I take the position that we have to treat every single child that is in the public domain, who is a child of a public school system, as if they're in a caseload. So somebody has to be the persons who are holding the caseload. So if I've got a district that has 33,000 kids in it, then I've got a caseload of 33,000 kids. I don't have a caseload that has 33,000 people in it, but the ones that I'm really helping are the 16,000 that are prepared students. And the other 17,000, well, tough, we'll just try to keep you out of family court, until you get old enough to be 16. And then we ain't gonna worry about you at all anymore. We have to treat every single child as if they're a part of a caseload. If a child is a part of a caseload, then you've got an individual case service plan for each one of those children. Don't get all upset about, wow, 33,000 is a lot of people. we have 3,500 teachers in the school district. We have 1,500 or more ancillary people that are teacher aides, or in fact, maybe even more than that, maybe more like 2,500 teacher aides. So you've got like 6,000 people that are in the queue to help with those 33,000 people. So we're talking about basically 6 kids or 5 kids per professional in the district who is responsible for teaching and is in this direct relationship with these children. So it's not like we don't have resources. We just have to have people that are actually the resource that we're paying for. So if I'm hiring you to teach 3rd grade reading, you have to be competent to be able to teach 3rd grade reading. You can't just be competent to pass the 3rd grade reading proficiency exam so that you get licensed by the National Education Association or the Buffalo District's, accreditation, right? That's not enough. You have to be a successful person in terms of being able to teach history at that level or at whatever level, you are teaching at. You have to be competent in being able to get that done. Being able to pass the test to get licensed in a particular discipline doesn't necessarily mean that you are good at teaching that discipline. It just means that you are good at preparing yourself to take a test. But I need for you to be more than that. I need for you to be able to succeed in transferring what's inside of you, inside of these children every single time. And that you not only transfer your academic discipline, you transfer your personality, the personality of inquiry, the personality of curiosity, the personality of study, of effort, of pressing forward, for you as an individual trying to transform yourself into somebody who is a knower as opposed to somebody who is ignorant. That's what I need for you to be doing as the teacher aide. I need for all of the ancillary staff to be helping to push every student in that direction. If we adopt that kind of an attitude, you're going to see a different culture, that's going on inside of the schools. You have to integrate the parents into this queue. Just because you don't know anything about education, just because you're an undereducated person yourself as a parent, doesn't mean that you don't have an interest, a stake in, or a desire to see high academic proficiency on the part of your children. You just may not be good at it yourself, right? So I'm not gonna ask you to be the one to stir the pot when you can't cook, right? but I still want you in the kitchen because it's your pot. So I definitely want you in the kitchen, right? That's the way we've got to do this. Why does desegregation hurt? Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal, according to the Earl Warren Court in 1954. But rather than embracing the goal, America has often than not resisted the goal, beginning in September of 1957 when Caucasian people formed a human blockade to stop 9 African-American students who would be known as the Little Rock Nine from entering the all-white Little Rock Central High School for the first time. The governor actually called in the National Guard. The National Guard is supposed to protect the people in the state. He called in the National Guard not to protect the black students, but to support the segregationists who were trying to hurt the black students. That's the kind of country that we had. Fortunately, President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent in the Army and said, okay, you got the National Guard, I got the Army. He brought the Army in, and those students were finally allowed to enter school. But since the Brown versus Board of Education decision, such tremendous force has been mounted against integration that despite heroic counter efforts, we're mostly still separate and still unequal. Dr. Gary Orfield, who you've heard us talk about quite a bit during this hour, is director of UCLA's Civil Rights Project. He wrote a 2014 opinion in Time magazine. It said that though the situation in the South is much better than before the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education integration decision, we have lost the progress made in the last 40 years. During this time, the same Supreme Court that opened the desegregation struggle has slammed the door for many communities with rulings that have dismantled even very successful desegregation plans. Chicago public schools are suing the state of Illinois for alleged violations of the Illinois Civil Rights Act. Black and Latino students make up 20% of the Illinois public school students, but receive only 15% of the money that the state appropriates for education. The same situation that we had in Buffalo. In New York State, advocates are still chasing Governor Andrew Cuomo to pay out money won more than a decade ago through the successful campaign for fiscal equity. Because there is no constitutional right to an education in the United States, all of these cases are based on state constitutions, according to Miriam Nunberg, a former attorney with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. Because of the way school districts are drawn around segregated neighborhoods and municipalities known as gerrymandering, racism is always implicit in the design of how people are allowed to enroll in schools. Redrawing school districts so that parts of Buffalo, if we were going to actually solve this issue of desegregation across the board and the issue of segregation on the basis of economic class, if we were going to solve that, here's a way. I'm not saying it the way that I'm putting forward is the only way to do it. I'm simply saying that if you have a problem, first thing you want to do is figure out a solution that actually solves the problem. Then if you don't like the solution, you got to come up with another solution, but it's got to be at least as good as the one that solved the problem, right? So what I'm going to say to you is a solution. It may not be the one that you like, but it would actually solve the problem. Now, if you don't like it, come up with a better one. But if you can't come up with a better one, this one might do, right? So what I'm suggesting is that we have the state, not local districts, we have the state redraw school districts so that parts of Buffalo are included in adjacent suburban districts so that every district has a 15 to 20% minority enrollment and none have an enrollment of more than 20% of their students who are from poverty or near poverty household incomes. If we did that, now folks will say, well, that means that Buffalo as a public school district would disappear. Yep, that would happen. All of you that are about to, cry, you should go ahead and let your tears go, because that's what would happen. You would lose Buffalo as a district. You'd end up with districts that are majority suburban, and those populations would be split up so that a piece of the population would be in Depew, a piece would be in West Seneca, a piece would be in Orchard Park, a piece would be in Lancaster, a piece would be in Cheektowaga, a piece would be, maybe more than one piece would be in Cheektowaga, a piece would be in Williamsville, a piece would be in Amherst, a piece would be in Kenmore, Village of Kenmore, Town of Tonawanda. Now, you may not like that, okay? But if you did that, then you'd have integrated schools across at least a suburban ring around the city of Buffalo, number one. And number two, you would have no schools that would be dominated by low income, low socioeconomic status students who would then inform or sort of push the school in a cultural matrix that is not centered in the middle class in our area. That's really that's what the research says, that if you keep your low income populations below 20%, you tend to have the 20% adopt the behaviors and the values of the 80%, not the other way around. That's one way to try to solve this problem. Again, you may not like that solution, but it is a solution that would get this done. Do you have a caller hang on here? All right, let me get that call real quick. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes.
Hey.
I was just commenting on. I was going to comment on what you just mentioned.
Uh-huh.
What I also think people should consider with what you're saying, maybe going to what they have down south is county school districts,
uh-huh,
and then just have what you could have like zoned county districts that might use a piece of the city and then adjacent suburbs. And then what also people have to think about too with this, you might actually decrease your property taxes by doing this, because then you consolidate as a county into the people that might be working into these districts. So that might be another factor people should consider, not just the aspect of school integration and access to resources, but also a reduction in your property taxes.
Yep.
Because school taxes make up the biggest portion of property taxes for homeowners.
Yep.
So that might be something that you should also input into this equation in order to maybe have something like that plan come to fruition.
I think you're absolutely right. That is similar to what many districts have done. In Memphis County, they consolidated the school districts in Memphis County, so it's really just one school district. They did the same thing in Miami-Dade County, in Florida. You know, that's been done in a number of places. I don't know to what extent it has actually worked, although I do know that in the Miami school district, things have gotten significantly better since they did this. Dr. Cash, our current school superintendent in the city of Buffalo, he came from the Memphis school district. They consolidated their district there. Although they didn't pick him to become the superintendent of the consolidated school district, it does seem to have worked in the way that you're describing, that it put a cap on property taxes. You weren't seeing these big increases in property taxes anymore because they did that. Of course, in Buffalo, we've had this conversation about consolidating Erie County into one school district, but it's really hard to get the people in Erie County to go along with this. I don't think you're going to be able to get it done that way. I think you're going to have to get the state to actually take a draconian posture and just order the school districts in Erie County to be reconstructed as one school district, or to redivide all of the districts in a way like I had described before, that takes pieces of Buffalo and puts pieces of Buffalo into majority suburban school districts and accomplish much the same thing that you just described. But you're absolutely right. That's great thinking, and that's what's really got to get done if we're going to be successful. Listen, they got the hook on me now. They say that I only get an hour. So, all right. I appreciate you, man. I look forward to talking to you next week. And thank all of you out there. Thank all of you out there for continuing to listen to us and support us here at Living Now, Living Right Now. We'll see you all.